We have this from independent journalist, legal affairs journalist Meghann Cuniff on X saying victory for Afroman over the sheriff's deputies who sued him for defamation and invasion of privacy through false light. The judge today saying, quote, in all circumstances, the jury finds in favor of the defendant. No plaintiff verdict prevailed, so the matter will be concluded with defense verdicts. And we want to bring in Meghann Cuniff right now, who's been covering this trial from the beginning. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So there's been a lot of eyes on this just because of who it is and, of course, that video going viral that started all of this. So first, let's go back to that police raid at Afroman's Adams County, Ohio home. What led to that, and what did police find there?
So they found marijuana and seized some cash, but they never actually led to any criminal charges against Afroman. And what happened was there was a discrepancy in the amount of money that they seized. They wrote in their search warrant ledger that they'd seized $4,400, but he only got $4,000 back. So that led to a big back and forth where he's repeatedly accused them of being thieves. And they actually contracted with an outside, another sheriff's office who did an investigation. And the conclusion is that the deputy who counted this money and did the search warrant ledger on returned items actually miscounted, overcounted $390. And they don't know what accounted for the other $10, but there was pretty detailed testimony about this. But Afroman's lawyer was making the point in his closing argument today that one defense against defamation is truth. And while he has other statements about these deputies that are at issue, like he called one a pedophile repeatedly, he said that he slept with another's wife, all those statements were at issue. The defense on those statements were that those were so outlandish and exaggerated, they're just clearly exaggerations that can't be taken as truth. However, the defense for the theft statements was truth, was that there's some truth and there are a lot of questions going on here. So to have the jury come back in Afroman's favor like this really is just a resounding victory for him across the board.
And throughout that trial, Afroman saying that this is his freedom of speech to be able to speak out against those officers who raided his home. What other points was he making in court? Even some clips from the trial itself getting a lot of views on social media. For you who's been watching it from the beginning, what are some points that stood out to you? Even just his outfit, a lot of people are talking about. What was the reasoning for that?
Yeah, his lawyer actually pointed out the outfit today and said, you know, he's a comedian. Can you somebody who wears this to court can't be somebody who just takes everything seriously all the time. He's wearing a really elaborate red, white, and blue American flag suit. But I think it's because this represents a lot more to him than just defending himself. He even told a reporter outside the courthouse today after he won that this was a victory not just for him, but for America, that freedom of speech lives on, that this is for the people, by the people. And I think that's what he's trying to represent in his suit here. And now keep in mind that this is much to the dismay and despair, maybe even, of these sheriff's deputies whose lawyer actually told the jury that he thought they were sent by a higher power, the jury was, to send a message to Afroman that he needs to stop this. And he said the deputies have suffered terribly, and he actually asked for almost $4 million to be awarded and warned of what could happen if there's a defense verdict, said that it's just going to make things worse for them. So I'm just imagining the sheriff's deputies sitting there hearing their lawyer talk about how horrible it's going to be when they lose, and then they lose. So I think moving forward, what the path forward looks like is a little tough for them. But I think to say emboldened is probably the right word for Afroman here. He felt really under attack here and unfairly attacked. So to have this verdict is a huge victory for him. And I don't expect he's going to let up on them anytime soon.
And we do have a short clip of the music video that led to all of this. We want to play that really quickly again. We just have about 10 seconds of this, but this is what police are saying is the issue. They say this has led to even death threats. Let's listen in one more time to a clip of that music video.
Will you help me repair my gate? Will you help me repair my door?
So That was just a piece of it there, Meghann. But for people who haven't seen this video that has gotten a lot of views, tell us more about what's in it. He has a lot of surveillance video from outside and inside of his home showing the police raiding the home. There's also allegations that they may have tried to disconnect those cameras that he was using for those videos.
Right. And I think some people will hear that, a rapper wrote a song about police raiding his home and think that this must be really, really profane. And some of his attacks, especially against a female deputy, have been obscene and profane. But his video about this raid that features the footage is actually about a lemon pound cake that was sitting on the kitchen counter. And there is footage of a deputy, an armed deputy, moving through the kitchen. And you can see his eyes, that lemon pound cake does catch his attention. He doesn't stop or cut a slice, but Afroman makes the point in the video that he's definitely thinking about putting down that gun and cutting himself a slice. So it's actually a very fun, it went mega viral hit when he released it, because it's just, it feels like a fun song, but it's important to remember that the point of this lawsuit is the people who are being lampooned in it don't think it's fun, but his lawyer was making the point that as public officials, they really need to get a thicker skin.
And Afroman was actually asked if now he will stop talking about the officers who raided his home. What was his response to that question?
He said basically, are you saying I should stop being upset about the fact that they raided my home? He said this never would have happened if they hadn't come into my home. He said their kids are supposedly coming and complaining to the parents about being harassed at school. Well, none of that would have happened if the parents hadn't come into his home. And I think it's also important to remember that the actual evidence in this was really scarce. We heard testimony about the sheriff's office getting 300 phone calls in a day threatening them, and all these voicemails and all these threats, but we didn't see a lot of actual hard copies of anything. But the deputies were upset about this. However, it's important to probably state, and this was an important defense witness, his only defense witness was one of the sheriff's deputies who's suing. His ex-wife actually testified as a defense witness for Afroman and said that the deputies, whenever they talked about this song, they were just laughing about it.
All right, Meghann, and you've been watching this trial closely. Any other points that stood out to you throughout the arguments leading up to the closing today?
Yeah, I think just the idea that we had all these deputies testifying. We did hear some pretty heart-wrenching testimony, particularly from the female deputy, who I think the misogynistic attacks on her are really quite different from the lemon pound cake video, which is just kind of fun and games. And of course, he has the right to use footage from his raid in that in a video like that. And the judge actually tossed out the likeness misappropriation claim because of that, but the defamation and invasion of privacy through false light lived on.
Okay, a legal affairs journalist, Meghann Cuniff, thank you so much for your time and your perspective here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's take a 2-minute break. We'll be right back with more.